Hi, Verbling. My name is Michaela. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and today we're talking about stress and tone. Raphael, welcome to class.
Hi, Michaela. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Did you do anything fun this past weekend?
I worked this weekend, but not with photography. It was election in Brazil. You know, you live here.
Oh,
So I
yes,
worked in election. And it's good for me because if we work in election, we can take some days off of work.
Ah, nice.
hmm
Yeah, the elections were crazy on Sunday, and there's going to be more the following Sunday, right?
Yeah, I liked it because more days off.
Yay! All right, so not so good this weekend, but in the future you'll have days off. That's nice.
Yes, 6 days.
You get 6 days off for working one
No,
election day?
no, 1 day, 3 days, and then I
Ah,
will earn more, three more.
excellent.
Mm.
Very cool. And Abimelech, welcome to class.
Nice to see you.
Good to have you back today.
Thank you.
All
How are
right.
you?
I'm doing really well. It's Tuesday. It doesn't feel like Tuesday. For some reason, yesterday felt like the middle of the week. So I'm kind of like all out of sorts. I don't know where I am in the world anymore. But but that's actually good because usually Mondays feel like really heavy days, and yesterday didn't
Yes.
feel so heavy. So I'm happy.
Monday is starting day. That's why.
Yeah, you were studying a lot yesterday?
Yes.
Awesome. And continuing it today.
Yes.
Great. Okay, I'm going to put the notes for you guys in the chat boxes. You guys can open it up and we will get started. So we're going to be looking at stress patterns and tone today. And I'll try to screen share the notes as well in just a second. Aye, aye. Okay, now I'm ready. Here we go. So first thing we're going to talk about are some rules about stress patterns in words before we go on to stress patterns in sentences. So we have a couple rules here for us to read. Abimelech, will you read the first one for us?
Okay. Do you have to read number also?
The numbers are just like number one, like rule number one. Most.
Okay.
Sorry, if that's not clear.
Number one, most. Number two, syllable nouns, unless compound like take over, let down, etc. And adjectives, example, China, table, slender, happy, present, are stressed on the first syllable.
Mm-hmm. So all of those two-syllable nouns and adjectives are stressed on the first syllable, and that's the majority of two-syllable nouns and adjectives, but it is also not 100%. So we have China, table, slender, happy, and present. Rafael, will you read rule number 2?
Yes, most two-syllable verbs are stressed on the second syllable. Examples: decide, begin, and present.
Thank you very much. So, a little bit different, but the same concept. Most two-syllable verbs are stressed on the second syllable. All right, Abimelech, read rule number 3.
Okay. Most words are end in IC, SION, TION are stressed on the second to last syllable. Example, revelation, geographic, station.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. And Rafael, number 4.
Most words that end in cy, phy, ty, gy, al are stressed on the third from the last syllable. Examples: democracy, photography, critical.
Thanks. All right, so we're going to go over this short list of words and decide where the stress is, and then if it follows one of the rules. So the very first one, Abimelech, will you go ahead and try to decide where we'll put the stress in that word?
Choreography.
Mm-hmm.
Lust. Phy.
And why do you think it's the last?
Choreography, because phy is there at last.
Yeah, it's rule number 4. And what does rule number 4 say?
If words ends with phy, then stress will be at last.
It says on the third from the last syllable. So it might be kind of hard to picture this, but how many syllables do we have in the word choreography? How many syllables in all?
Okay, I need to confess something. I don't know how to count syllables in English.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. It's something that I didn't learn.
Okay, well
Three
then that's
years,
a
yeah,
good place
three
to
years
start.
learning English, and I don't know how to count syllables.
All right, well then a few rules for counting syllables are that only vowels can make a syllable, so each syllable has to have a vowel. A lot of students who are a little unsure of this will try to say the stress goes on the G or the R, but you can't. You have to put the stress on a vowel. And sometimes people find clapping or tapping helpful when they read these words. So if each vowel sound makes a chunk of a syllable, we have cor, e, a, gra, fi. So that's 5 syllables. The first one is C-H-O-R, core, or I guess sometimes it depends too. You could say choreography. The consonants are not as important as the vowels. So each vowel sound gets a syllable, and then you can arrange the consonants as makes most sense to you. Does that make sense?
Yes, but it's weird because in Portuguese we have a rule. For example, when we want to separate a word in syllables, we have rule. So, is there any rule in English like I need to separate the syllables like this, or you can do this, and if you want, you can do that? Is that what
Um,
you are explaining?
yeah, kind of. So basically, every time you have a vowel sound, that's one syllable. You can't have 2 vowel sounds in one syllable. So for instance, Corey would never be able to be one syllable because it has 2 vowels in it, 2 vowel sounds. Now the difficulty with English is that sometimes we'll have 2 vowels together that make just one vowel sound. So you cannot go by the spelling. You have to go by the sound of the word in your ear. And I think that's probably where English differs from Portuguese, because in Portuguese, it's pretty easy. If you see a vowel, you pronounce that vowel. But in English, it's not exactly the same. Like, for instance, in the word read, R-E-A-D, we have 2 vowels, but just one syllable.
That's why
So
English
you
is
have
very
to,
difficult.
huh?
That's why English is very difficult.
Yes, it is difficult. So let's practice a little bit. We'll go through all of the syllables of these words before we go back and start looking at where the stress is. So we already decided that choreography has 5, choreography, 5. What about this one? How many vowel sounds does it have?
2.
Yeah, 2. So how many syllables does it have?
2 syllables.
Mm-hmm. 2 syllables. All right, and what are the syllables?
Christmas.
Yes, exactly. Now this one is easy to separate because it would be really difficult if you wanted to stick these consonants in with miss. So like Cree could be a syllable, but then it would be really hard to say miss, right? So the easiest way to separate it into 2 syllables is to just find word chunks that are a little easier to say, like Christ, miss. But that kind of is based on opinion. So when we see in choreography, at first I separated core and then e, a, gr, fi. But another person might do ko, then re together as a syllable, then a, gr, fi. So there might be multiple ways to do it, but in the word Christmas, it makes it really easy because there's no way that you could say stmas. So that kind of sounds awkward. So you kind of just can feel, or at least an experienced student would be able to feel that Christ is the place to cut it off. Let's try the next one. Abimelech, will you separate the next one into syllables and tell us how you did it?
Cap T V T.
Mm-hmm.
4
Exactly.
syllables.
Yep, 4 syllables. Thanks. Rafael, you're up next.
Transfusion. 3 syllables.
Uh-huh. And how are they separated?
Transfusion.
Exactly. Great. Next up, Abimelech. Try it.
Print out. 2 syllables.
Mm-hmm. 2 syllables. And this one is one of those kind of confusing ones because we do have 2 vowel sounds here, or 2 vowels, but we just say it as one. Print out. And the next one, the last one, is for Rafael.
This is a difficult one. Arthritic. Arthritic.
Mm-hmm.
3 syllables?
Yep, 3 syllables. So where are they divided?
Arthritic.
Okay, great. That would work. So, any more questions on how to divide syllables? You guys want to go over more examples of words to talk about syllables?
Yeah, it helps.
Okay, let's do a few more then. How about the word sentence? Abimelech, will you do the word sentence?
Sen is 2 syllables, I think.
Mm-hmm. And where are they divided?
Sentence.
Yeah, and it does have an E on the end, but of course that E is silent, so it does not make an extra syllable. Great job. Okay, how about bedtime? Rafael, can you bedtime?
Bedtime. 2 syllables. Bedtime.
Yep, exactly. Okay, let's see. How about geography? Abimelech? Geography.
Geography. 4 syllables.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Rafael, anthropology. We're going to go with some sciences here.
Anthropology. Anthropology. 5 syllables.
Yep, 5 syllables. We'll do a couple more. This one is my hometown of Phoenix. Abimelech, what are the syllables in Phoenix?
How do you pronounce that?
It's pronounced phoenix.
Phoenix.
Phoenix. It would kind of be like if I wanted to put it into letters that made a little more sense, it's pronounced like Feenix.
Phoenix. This is a difficult one.
Yeah.
Phoenix. Two, according to pronunciation.
Two, exactly, because for some crazy reason this O and E make just one vowel sound. That doesn't make a lot of sense, I admit. All right. Oops. Okay. Rafael, California.
California. Yeah, 4 syllables.
Yeah, I would say 4 syllables. And this one, it might depend, like, of course, if someone maybe from Mexico were saying the name, they might put 5 syllables in there. This one could be, like, debatable, but I say it with 4 syllables only. Because this last one, I say, like, nya. I don't say nia. I don't say California, right? So it is 4 syllables for me, but it might depend on the person who says it as well.
Yes, that's what I've been learning because if you know Portuguese, and in Portuguese I would say that it's 5 syllables. It has 5 syllables. But I'm learning the way American pronounce words. So yeah, it seems that you consider that sound as a only 1 syllable.
Yeah, and like everything else, really, it's more regular in English, so it could depend on the person saying it, the accent they have, but most of the time, I think you're right. Americans usually pronounce this last thing as 1 syllable, and in Portuguese, it would kind of be like the H, N-H-A. So we don't have an extra letter that represents that sound. We just kind of have to make it up. All right. Any other questions so far before we go back and decide where the stress is?
No.
No?
Okay. All right. So then let's go back to choreography. We decided that it has 5 syllables and it ends in PHY, which means that it follows rule number 4, right?
Yes.
Those are stressed on the third from the last syllable. So what does it mean to be the third from the last syllable?
P.
The P?
Third.
What about the P?
We have to give stress on P.
Okay, so first mistake is that we cannot stress a consonant. We have to stress a vowel because vowels are what dictate the syllables. So you have to choose a vowel and then make sure it's the third from the last, which is kind of a difficult thing to do. So what does it mean to be the third from the last?
Then it should be A. A.
Okay, so here we have 4 syllables or 5 syllables, and A, this A, is the 4th syllable. So why did you choose the 4th syllable?
Because we have to give stress on vowel, and from the third is from the last. Third is A.
So here we have syllable number 5. We're going to count backwards here. So syllable number 5 is this phi. Syllable number 4 is this gra. Syllable number 3 is this one, choreography. So it's third from the last because if you count backwards, you would count phi 1, gra 2, 3. That's third from the end, which is kind of a difficult expression, but in English when we say third from the end, we mean you have to count backwards. and it's going to be number 3 when you're counting backwards. It also happens to be number 3 when you're counting forwards, but the rule will give you an idea for every word. So in this case, the stress is on the O, choreography. And if you look at some of these examples here, we have democracy, photography, and critical. So if you look at critical, we have counting backwards, 1 here, cal is 1, T is 2, and crit is 3. So in this case, counting backwards, the third from the end is actually the first syllable. Critical, critical. And in photography and democracy, it works pretty much similarly to choreography. So you have phi as 1, gra as 2, and to as 3. Photography. All right. Let's keep on going. The next one, Rafael.
Christmas, the stressed syllable is on the second from the last, and I don't know about the rule.
Okay, so it is dictated by one of these rules. We have to decide which one. So first off, how many syllables is Christmas?
It's in the first rule.
Yes, which means what?
Most two-syllable nouns are stressed on the first syllable.
Yep. So which syllable, or specifically which vowel, will have the stress here?
Vowel Y. I.
You mean I?
I, yes, not Y. I.
Yes. Okay. So Christmas. We have this sound with the most stress because it's a two-syllable noun.
Yeah,
All right.
I know. I think that rules help, but I think the best way to learn that is to keep saying the words. Because if you keep saying the words and then you read, and then it goes automatically.
I totally agree. I think the best thing is practice, because that just sticks it in your brain better than memorizing a rule. Once you've read the same word or similar words 100,000 times, you'll never forget it, versus trying to memorize a rule can be tricky and sometimes ineffective. These are just some tips in case, and also some people really like having rules, and that's sometimes frustrating. No?
No.
You prefer just to kind of let it sink in naturally?
When it's easy, I prefer. Sometimes we need rules, I think. But when it's easy to learn, I think sometimes rules complicate.
I totally agree. Abimelech, what do you think? Do you prefer to have rules?
No, I also prefer automatically.
Excellent. I'm glad you guys feel that way, because I agree that sometimes these rules make things a little more complicated, because English is so irregular that a lot of times the rules work only like 50% of the time. So it's like, yeah, you can work really hard and memorize rules, but in the end, that's only going to help you some of the time anyways.
And I was so surprised because I noticed that the word present and present in the first and in the second rule, and I've never thought about it, because when present is a noun, we say present, and verb, present as a noun and present as a verb, and I do it naturally. I never thought about it.
Yeah, that's one of those things that most native speakers don't realize either, because when you learn it naturally, you don't think too much about it, but especially for beginners, this actually is a very helpful distinction to make, because it's spelled exactly the same. So some people might have to read the word, but they don't actually know how to pronounce it or what it means, because we have two totally different definitions for a word that is spelled the same. And that happens, unfortunately, very frequently in English. We have there, two, and two, which sound the same but are spelled differently. And then we have words like polish and Polish that are spelled the same but pronounced differently. And we even have a pattern of pronouncing things with a different stress, so present and present. We also have dessert and dessert. We have, what are some other ones?
Someone corrected me about the pronunciation of the word close as a verb and close as a I don't know how to define the
Yes.
second one.
So we have
As
the
adverb?
adjective, like close, as in near, right?
Yes, adjective.
Mm-hmm. And then we have close as in shut. Like shut the door, close the door.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the difference between those two words, Rafael?
One is a verb and one is a adjective.
Mm-hmm. What's the pronunciation difference between those two words?
I don't remember, but one you say close and the other one we say close.
Yes. Abimelech, do you know the difference in pronunciation between those two words?
Close. I don't know.
Yeah, so you guys have the pronunciation right. It's just a matter of memorizing which pronunciation for which definition. But this is one of the most common mistakes early English speakers make. And it's totally English's fault because this is really complicated and makes no sense. We should not do this, but we do. Close, as in near, is with an S. And close, as in shut, is with a Z sound, even though it's spelled with an S.
Okay.
So maybe, okay, I've got a way for you guys to remember it. When you're sleeping, when you're getting Z's, you close the door, right? Because you're sleeping. Getting Z's?
I'll try to memorize.
Okay. I don't know if I can come up with anything better than that. It's not a really good trick. But close the door because I'm getting Z's. I'm sleeping. Okay. So basically what we have discussed is that English is totally complex and irregular and makes very little sense. And that's a bummer. But the best way to get over that is practice. So let's keep going. We're going to name some more syllables and stresses. The next word is for Abimelech. How many syllables do we have there?
Captivity. There are 4.
Yup. So which rule is it under?
Number 4.
Mm-hmm.
And there should be stress on T. Captivity.
Exactly. Awesome. You've totally gotten this rule now. So we have third from the last, we have T, we have V, and then the last one, number 3 from the last, would be T. Perfect. Captivity. All right. Next up, Rafael.
Transfusion, 3 syllables.
Mm-hmm.
And the stress syllable is on the FU, and
yes.
the rule is number 3.
Exactly. So if we count backwards, we have jeune as one and few as the second to last. Abimelech, next up.
Print out 2 syllable are there.
Mm-hmm. And do you know which rule it goes under?
Yes, number 1, I think.
Okay, that works. So this word is funny because it's a word that we can use as a verb or as a noun, kind of depending. So I might say something like, will you print out that paper? So if you wanted to use it as a verb, you could. You can say, print out that paper. And the stress would be on out. Or I can say, hey, do you have the printout? Did you get it? I gave you a printout. So.
But together?
What do you mean together?
Is it a phrasal verb or separated or together?
You're right. It is separated. So if we were going to If we were going to use it as a verb, we would generally separate it instead of using it as one word. You're right. All right. Any other questions on this one before we do our very last one?
No.
Okay, then Rafael, you're up. Last one.
Arthritic,
Mm-hmm.
3 syllables, and the role is number 3.
Uh-huh. So where's the stress?
On the second from the last.
Which is?
3.
Yeah, this one. Great. Okay. Those rules work most of the time. Yeah, question?
Sorry, I wasn't clear about printout. Did you say when we use this word as verb, then stress should be on out, print out?
So as Rafael pointed out, when we use it as a verb, it's separated, but yeah, I would put the stress on the out. So since it's a verb, it kind of fits into the pattern. Even though in this case it's 2 syllables, I would say, print out that paper. Instead of saying, I would never say, hey, can you print out that paper? In fact, I find it difficult to even make myself do that because it just sounds bad. So I would have to say, print out that paper, instead of, hey, print out that paper.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And Shadow, welcome to class.
Yeah, hello teacher, hello everybody.
Hello.
So good to have you with us. And Rafael and Abimelech are going to share with you a little bit about what we've been talking about so far in class. Abimelech, can you give her maybe 1 or 2 little tips that we've talked about so far today?
Yes, we are working on in a particular word where we have to give stress, and there are 4 rules we have learned so far, and I haven't memorized yet, but I can tell you.
Mm-hmm. Excellent start. Rafael, is there anything else you wanted to add before we go on to help Shadow review what we've been talking about?
No, I think he did a great job.
Okay.
I don't think so.
No, I think you did an awesome job. You gave the basics. She's going to have to read and memorize, if she wants, those 4 rules on her own. We were talking about word stress. But right now, we're going to move on and talk a little bit about sentence stress. So you can go back and review that in a little bit. And for now, Shadow, will you read this first paragraph here?
Yeah, sure. Words that have the most stress in English are called continent words. Continent words are usually the nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and pronouns. Demonstrative, possessive, reflexive, and interrogative. These words are important to express the main meaning of the sentence.
All right. So we have a bunch of words that we don't usually use. The interrogative would be a question word, like what, where, who. And the reflexive word would be something like I wash myself or I wake myself up. That would be a reflexive. Possessive is pretty easy. You guys are into it. And demonstrative would be an, let me see. Demonstrative is, I don't know. I think that's like an article. Demonstrative would be like the, a, or an. Okay, so ignoring all of the fancy words, we can basically say that content words are these nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and pronouns. They're the important words of a sentence. So kind of if you could only hear, say a person said a sentence with 10 words in it, and you only could hear 2 words, you would want to hear something like a noun and a verb, because that would give you a good idea. Even if you only hear 2 words out of every 10, it gives you a good idea of what they're talking about. So these words are important to express the main meaning of the sentence. Now let's talk a little bit about function words. Rafael, will you read the second paragraph for us?
Yes, function words are those words that are weaker and shorter. They include auxiliary verbs, prepositions, conjunctions, determiners, and possessive adjectives. These words are less important in expressing the meaning of the sentence.
Okay. So we're going to look down below and decide which words are function words and which words are content words. Now you can use these definitions up here to help you, or you can go with your gut instinct, and I think that's a pretty good way to do it too. So pick out of each sentence which are the most important words to understanding the meaning of the sentence. And we'll do this first one together. So, when are you coming to dinner? If you could only hear like 2 of those words, which would be the most important words to understanding that sentence?
Coming
When?
dinner.
Coming and dinner, maybe.
When?
Maybe when, sure. So the most important words are probably the first word telling us what the person is asking, and then this last verb and the subject or the object here, dinner. So when coming to dinner, even if you did not hear are, you, and to, if you just heard when coming dinner, you would understand, right? Or most people would understand the meaning of the question. And that's another reason why some students who are really beginners, they might leave out or make mistakes with some of these words, like maybe they forget to say the verb are, and they aren't really sure of what preposition here, so they put in something else. But as long as they have these main words, it's easy to understand them for the most part. Okay. Any questions before I ask you guys to do them individually?
No?
Okay. Then this first one, let's have Abimelech read this sentence and then decide which words are content words and which words are function words.
Okay. Motorcycles can be dangerous to drive or ride on. I think content words are dangerous. Motorcycles, drive, ride.
Yeah, definitely. Those are the 4 most important words in this sentence. Anyone have a different opinion? Because some of this can be a little bit about opinion, but I think you selected the best ones. Okay. Then
What was second one?
what?
What was the second one?
The second one? What do you mean?
First was content words and second one.
The second one are function words, which are basically all the words that are not content words are function words. So basically what you did is, because you said motorcycle, dangerous, drive, and ride are content words, that automatically means that can, be, to, or on are the function words. And that's true. And in general, you can just tell because these function words are really small. They're like 2 or 3 letters, and they don't give that much meaning to the sentence, even though they are important for the structure. Okay. Next up, Rafael, can you do the next sentence for us?
Yes, last month Carol got a new job in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think it's so tricky because I think it depends on the content, the context. I mean,
It
because
does.
we don't know what they were talking about to say this sentence. Because if we are surprised because Carol got a new job, I would say, oh, she got a new job. And maybe she's so excited about working in San Francisco. I would say I would put the stress on San Francisco. That's
Okay.
what I'm I'm confused. That's why I'm confused about that.
So right now we're just going to separate between function and content words because you're right, sometimes there's a lot of context that plays into how we stress a sentence. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Later on we have some notes about which words we would stress and why. But right now just separate the words that you think are content words and words that are function words because that's the first step into deciding which words we would stress. Because no matter what the context was, I would never say, last month Carol got a new job in San Francisco. I would never stress the word in because it's a function word, or it's a content word. It's a function word, not a content word. And so no matter what the context is, I would never stress this word. So maybe the best way to go about it is decide what words would you never stress in this sentence? Which words are the function words that would never take more emphasis than other words?
Um, in um, articles like or maybe a month.
Okay, could be. So it totally depends on the context and what's important in that situation or not. But you're right that in and are definitely words that we would not stress very much. And
But
maybe something
did
like
you
month.
understand what I said?
Words that we, yeah, that sometimes, say someone had made a mistake, like Rafael said to me, oh, last year she got a new job. I might go, oh, no, last month she got a new job. So I
Okay.
could, right? So that's what you're saying, is right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Exactly. So depending on the context, we could stress whichever words are necessary, but the only words that we would never stress would be the function words, like a or in. And in this case, there might be some words that are more clear or more important than other words, like San Francisco and Carol, of course, are probably words that will always have more stress than others because those are like the really important parts of the sentence, right? So you're right that month does not have that much meaning, or it's not as important as Carol or San Francisco. And probably job is up there as well. Job and new are up there in importance. So if we had to pick like 4 words that got the most stress, they probably would be those. And then the other words sort of sit in the background a little bit. But it depends a lot. And we'll talk more about that in a second. Shadow, can you do the next sentence for us?
Mhm.
Sure.
She bought book. I think those 3 content.
So what are the
And
3 content words?
she bought book.
And then the only function word we have here is the.
That. Mhm.
Yeah. So we have 3 content words, but I would say probably that but and book are the most important content words. And in a sec, we're going to see how that starts to give us a rhythm of English. The next sentence, which is similar, but we've tacked on another word, Abimelech, will you do the next one?
Okay. She bought the book for her sister. Here, bought, book, and sister are main content words, I think.
Yeah, those are content words, and they're probably the most important content words. Of course, there are a couple others, but we probably would stress those. And you start to see this up and down. She bought the book for her sister. So we see this up and down rhythm. Rafael, can you do the next one?
She bought the book for her sister who lives down the street. She bought book. I'm not sure. Maybe her sister who lives down the street.
Yeah. So we have a few function words here, but the main words that we're going to stress keep this sort of up and down pattern. She bought the book for her sister who lives down the street. So we have this up and down, kind of emphasizing certain words that are more important than others. Last one, it's kind of the same as the ones we've been reading. Abimelech, will you try it out?
Okay. She bought the book for her sister who lives down the street and never reads. Stress should be bought book sister lives street reads.
Yes, great. Only one other thing that I'd like to mention, which is that negative words almost always get stress. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say they always get stress because it's kind of important that we know the difference between a positive and a negative, right? That's one of the most important things in a sentence. So in this particular sentence, we probably would also stress the word never. And continuing in that thought with this negative thing, I'm going to read these two sentences and ask you guys to tell me how they change, because these sentences will change. They're almost the same, but one is negative and one is not. So, sentence number 1, I can go to the store in my car. I can go to the store in my car. Sentence number 2, I can't go to the store in my car. I can't. I can't go to the store in my car. So, what changed between I can go to the store in my car and I can't go to the store in my car?
Do you stress the negative?
Yeah, the stress is different. Where's the main part where the stress changes?
Can't.
Yeah, can't. And this is also something that relates to the schwa sound and reduction, because in English, a lot of times when I say something fast or casually, I kind of squish all these words together. And in that case, can gets kind of squished away because it's not the main verb, right? So it's actually kind of a function word if it's positive, because it's just a helper verb. It's auxiliary. It's not our main verb, go. So I would say, I can go to the store in my car. I can go to the store in my car. And in that case, we would have go, store, car, and maybe I. Those are the stressed content words. But in the next sentence, it totally changes. And I would say, I can't go to the store in my car. I can't go to the store in my car. And in this case, I would stress can't. And there's no way for me to reduce that or squish it away like I did in the last sentence, because that's the most important part. Because if I say I can go to the store in my car and I mean a negative thing, but it sounds positive, then that's really confusing. So if it has a negative attached to it, it has to be stressed, because that's really important to the meaning of the sentence.
I think it's really helpful when we are listening to English, especially in songs, because I noticed that we don't hear the T sound sometimes, and we're not sure if it's can or can't. But according to the to how you pronounce the words, the stressed syllable or word, we can see if it's can or can't.
Yeah, I totally agree. That T kind of gets cut off and usually doesn't get its full pronunciation, which can be difficult to understand. But like you said, if we can understand that this can usually get squished away and this one doesn't, then we can recognize the difference between them, but not by the T, by something totally different. Okay, do you guys have any questions on the difference between content and function words and how we emphasize some?
No.
Okay, so that's kind of just generally content versus function, very general. Now we're going to talk a little bit about tonic stress, which is a little more specific. Let's have Abimelech read this paragraph for us.
Okay, tonic stress. An intonation unit almost always has one peak of stress, which is called tonic stress or nucleus. Because stress applies to syllables, the syllable that receives the tonic stress is called tonic syllable. The term tonic stress is usually preferred to refer to this kind of stress in referring, proclaiming, and reporting utterances. Tonic stress is almost always found in a content word in utterance final position. Consider the following, in which the tonic syllable is underlined.
Okay, so again, we have a lot of really fancy vocabulary, which is not all that important. But the main idea that they're expressing here is that we have these content words and function words. The content words are stressed, but we usually have one word that's stressed a little more than the others, or we have kind of this pattern where something peaks, right? We have this going up feeling or going down feeling. So, in general, when we're saying a sentence, that peak is towards the end of a sentence. So we have 3 examples here. I'm going. So we have the stress on go because this is the main verb we're using. And even though it has 2 syllables, the word stress is on the first, so we're going to stress that first syllable, and it's the last word. In the second sentence, I'm going to London. We do have extra stress here. It has more stress than the word to or the verb am, but we stress London a little more. So our content words are going and London, but London gets a little more stress because we have this kind of going up feeling of stress. I'm going to London. And then in the last one, I'm going to London for a holiday. I'm going to London for a holiday. We have this up and down pattern of a word that isn't stressed with a word that's stressed, a word that isn't stressed with a word that's stressed, and then 2 words that are not stressed with holiday, which kind of is the peak of the stress. All right. Rafael, will you read this paragraph for us?
Teacher, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
The words that we hear, it's like going, London, holiday. Is it every word that contains 2 vowels, we always stress on the first one? It's like that?
It's not always the case, and that actually goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning of class. So for instance, we'll take London as an example. It's a noun, and it has 2 syllables, so we usually stress it on the first. So that's rule number 1 of the word stress pronunciation rules. However, something like holiday, we actually don't have a rule for nouns that are 3 syllables. So holiday happens to be stressed on the first. Oh, sorry. Was I muted that whole time I was talking?
No. I heard you.
Oh, well then my microphone is actually not working well. But so yeah, there's no rule for 3 syllable nouns, meaning that holiday happens to be stressed on the first syllable, but that's not always the case.
Okay.
Okay. Then Rafael, can you go ahead and read this paragraph for us?
Yes. A question does arise as to what happens to the previously tonic assigned syllables. They still get stressed, however, not as much as the tonic syllable, producing a 3-level stress for utterances. Then the following is arrived at, where the tonic syllable is further capitalized.
Okay. So that says the same thing that we just kind of talked about, which is that the word going, the word London are still going to get stress because they're still content words, but they might not get quite as much stress as holiday. These are very minor distinctions though, so it's not something that you have to worry about memorizing. Now, we're kind of running out of time, so there's plenty more that you guys can look over, and I might kind of go over quickly with you guys if we have a second. But do you guys have any like burning questions you want to ask right now?
Yes. What does utterances mean?
Good question. An utterance is a really general term for anything that comes out of your mouth. So most of the time, if we say a sentence, we're talking about a specific unit of words. It has to have a verb, it has to have a subject. But an utterance is just anything that comes out of your mouth. So an utterance could be just one word, or maybe it's not even a word. Maybe it's just a person going like, right? Like they're just making a sound. But that would also be considered an utterance. It's anything that comes out of your mouth.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
No.
No.
Okay. Then, Shadow, read this paragraph for us very quickly. It'll be the last thing we do today.
Emphatic stress. One reason to move the tonic stress from its utterance final position is to assign an emphasis to a content word, which is usually a modal auxiliary, an intensifier, an adverb. I don't know what please. Compare the following examples. The first two examples are adapted from. Okay, I finished.
Okay. So this is exactly what Rafael was telling us before, which is that depending on the context, you might emphasize different parts of the sentence. So the general rule is you stress content words and it goes up until the end, where the last one will usually have the most stress. But if you have a context that dictates something else, you could obviously change it very easily. So you might say it was very boring. And that would mean that it was boring, right? But if you say it was very boring, that means it was extreme, right? So you're really emphasizing how boring it was. It was so boring. It was very boring. It's a big complaint. But if you say it was very boring, if you emphasize the word boring and not the word very, it means that it was very boring, but it wasn't anything insane. If you emphasize the word very, you're saying like, oh my gosh, I thought it would never end. I wanted to fall on the ground and go to sleep or something. You're extremely saying how boring it was. Let's have Abimelech read the next two sentences for us.
You mustn't talk so loudly. You mustn't talk so loudly.
Right. So in the first sentence, I'm saying loudly. I'm trying to emphasize that the problem is the loudness. You mustn't talk so loudly versus you mustn't talk so loudly. So the emphasis changes a little bit based on what you want to emphasize or what you're trying to say. And other modifiers that someone might emphasize are all listed here. Unfortunately, we have hit the time to finish up. So you guys can go on and read this on your own. And there's also some practice for you guys. So if you guys do this practice at the end, there's a little dialogue here. And let me know how it goes. Let me know on Facebook, or if you want, I can practice this with you guys in the next class if you want to join, or in a future class. Just let me know. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and I will see you guys again soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.